All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation entitled Bakery Logistics, Eliminating Waste, Creating Profit. I'm Amanda Gonzalez, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Before we get started, I just want to do a review of a few housekeeping rules and to let you know how you can participate in today's webinar. We are looking at an example of the GoToWebinar attendee interface, which is made up of two parts: the viewer window on the left, which allows you to see everything the presenter will share on their screen, and the control panel at the right. Within that control panel is how you can participate. The audio pane provides audio information. By default, you have joined the webinar via mic and speakers. Click Audio Setup to select your computer, speakers, or headset device. During the presentation, you have the ability to send questions to our webinar staff through the Questions pane. Simply type in your question and click Send. At the end of the presentation, we will be doing a question and answer session to answer as many questions as we have time for. Again, we're going to address the Q&A at the end of today's session, and as a final reminder, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the ASB website's webinar page. Now I'm pleased to present our speaker today, Mark Braun. Mark is president of PC Data's North American division, the world leader in logistics automation solutions for the baking industry. While responsible for the overall business performance of PC Data's North American business, he spends much of his time in the field speaking with existing and potential customers about improving their distribution models. And many of you might be familiar with Mark from our Baking Tech conferences. He was there at the last one. So Mark, whenever you're ready, please feel free.
Ready as I'll ever be. I have to say I feel a little bit awkward sitting here in my office talking to my computer. I hope nobody's videotaping me. But thanks, Amanda. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate everybody taking the time to spend 45 minutes or an hour with me on bakery logistics and distribution. As the mailings said, and I truly believe logistics and distribution is one of the areas in which most bakers still have the most to gain in terms of improving their operating efficiency and profitability. So it's interesting to see that there's still a lot of old-fashioned distribution methods being deployed today with the modern production facilities that you see. I think it has to do, and this reminded me of a discussion I had with Dan Stone of Flowers the other at ASB, actually, as a matter of fact, where he said, you know what it is, it's logistics is something you can't touch and feel. It's not an oven, it's not a conveyor belt. It has to do with getting product from A to B, and it's difficult to see where you're losing money. And I think that's a lot of truth in that. So what we want to be talking about is you know, why logistics actually may matter even more than you think at first glance. Then how do you go about improving your logistics operations? What are the areas you need to be looking at, and how do you go about it? Then a business case, a brief business case, true life business case of what type of return on investment you could be looking at. And last but certainly not least, the keys to success, like any other venue you endeavor on, there's keys to success. It's no different here. There's some items that you got to keep in mind as you're looking at your logistics operations if you want to make it successful. So there's a slight delay here. I gotta get the delay down. What is logistics? What are we talking about? We're not just talking about trucks and fueling. We're talking about the transportation of the goods from the end of the production line, from the point of origin to the point of consumption, to delivery at your final destination. And it involves the information, transportation, inventory management, warehousing, material handling, packaging, and oftentimes also security of that product. Yeah, so anybody who's here for trucking only, I'm going to have to disappoint you. So why does logistics matter more than you may think? Well, very straightforward. If there's no delivery, there's no dollars coming in. It's a pretty obvious statement, but it's also very, very true. So you have to have your logistics operation down. As a matter of fact, most bakeries, when you think about it, the production of the bread is actually the easy part. Most bakeries are more of a distribution hub than they are a manufacturing facility. It's much more difficult to get the final product out in the right quantities to the right customers. So no deliveries, no dollars. It's the only quote-unquote portion of your cost left that can significantly be influenced. Of course, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's not at the same time, and I'll talk about that in later slides. It's a service differentiator to your customers. How well you have your logistics operation in order really is the face to your customers. If you get the right amount of product to your customers every time, on time, you will convey a different type of message to your customer than if you have a lot of logistics problems. Poor delivery performance means less customers, means less dollars. And last but certainly not least, a good logistics solution will support SQF quality and health and safety practices. So logistics touches a lot of different areas, and from that reason alone, it's probably more important than a lot of folks like to think about. When we look at the cost of bread, right, there's the production piece, the ingredients, sales and logistics, and what's left is your margin. But when you look at the production side of it, the industry focus has been on optimizing production. Over the last decade, really, more and more automation has crept into the production area. Volume have increased, and when you look at a modern production facility nowadays, personally, I'm amazed at just how few people are involved in these vast amounts of bread that come out of off the production lines. Industry, a second trend in this same vein is the consolidation that we've seen in the market. Higher production volumes reduces the per unit cost. It's all geared towards getting the minimal amount of production cost per unit out. And that will continue. I mean, it continues to this day. I think I saw an announcement of Flowers Foods buying another company just last week, was it? And that's going to continue. People are going to try to get bigger and reduce production costs that way. Looking at the ingredient side, now the ingredient side is truly a global market type. Really, there's not a lot left to do other than ride the roller coaster that is the ingredient pricing. I mean, there is some possibilities to hedge your purchases, and again, if you have a larger volume, there's some ways to reduce costs that way, but generally speaking, the price of ingredients is more dependent on the demand in China than it is of anything that we can do about it here in the U.S. So you're kind of delivered to the gods on the ingredient pricing side. On the sales side, I mean, obviously, if you come out with something new, trendy, for a certain amount of time, that'll give you a price premium, which automatically drops down to your margin, which is great. But inevitably, competition will pick up on these trends and start bringing out same or similar types of products, and pricing comes back down and squeezes the margin again. So that really leads to logistics. Logistics is the area where a lot of cost is sunk. It's actually significantly larger portion of the total cost than a lot of people like to think about. You need to be thinking about, and it depends on an individual operation, but anywhere between 25 to 40% of the cost of a loaf of bread is in logistics. Now, there's some obvious pieces to that cost. There's the warehouse and the labor involved in the warehouse. There's a transportation cost and the assets involved in transporting those goods to their final delivery point. But there's also some hidden, I say hidden, I mean, people know about the unaccounted for bucket, but the unaccounted for bucket is really a result of not having your logistics solution in order. If you were able to track every individual piece of product that comes off the production line, there would be no unaccounted for. Administration costs associated with the logistics side, and then errors and wastes. And errors and wastes are also, significant. They're probably the most significant because of they happen at the end of the product development cycle. When you look at a logistics error, you know, the ingredients have been harvested, they've been, the mix has been netted, product has been made, packaged, you have a logistics error, all those costs have been sunk into the product. So that makes that an error in logistics already more expensive than any other error in the production line. But then there's the associated costs associated with an error. If you have a logistics error, you have to update the administration. And let's say that's a 5-minute job at $25 an hour. You have to manage the customer. The customer's going to be unhappy. He's going to be calling. You're going to have to manage that. So you have your salesperson manage the customer for a couple of minutes at $35 an hour. Let's say, you know, you distinguish yourself by the service that you provide to your customer. So 8 out of 10 times, you're going to deliver an extra loaf of bread at another 75 cents a mile. The cost per error totals $9.25 per error. At 98% pick accuracy, let's say in 2% of the cases you make a mistake, 5,000 order lines a day, that's $325,000 a year. Just, you know, quick math. Very costly indeed. The flip side of it is, you know, if you were able to improve your order fulfillment and delivery, it has a very positive effect on your customer service. I talked about this a couple of slides ago. At 98% order pick accuracy, you can see that. Can you see my mouse move? Amanda, can you see my mouse move?
No, I'm not seeing the mouse move. That's odd.
No. Well, it's the same example as I had on the previous slide, but so 5,000 order lines a day, 98% order pick accuracy. That's 233 incorrect orders per customer per year. Doesn't have to be a lot, right? Could be one loaf missing, could be a bag of product missing. If you were able to ship at 99.9997% accuracy, which is a Six Sigma accuracy, for those who are familiar with Lean Six Sigma terminology, that's a quality measure that you try to hit. That error rate would drop down from 233 to 0.04. Now, 99.9997% obviously is very accurate, and you ask yourself, you know, is that really realistic to have something of that level? But there's a lot of businesses that have that level of accuracy, and I challenge anybody in baking to challenge themselves to see why couldn't they get to 100% accuracy. Here's some examples on the slide of different industries that have actually achieved, and we would expect no less than 99.9997% accuracy. U.S. mail, if 99% were good enough, they'd lose 20,000 pieces of mail per hour. Now, some of you might think that's the case. That's actually not the case. They are at Six Sigma level. They only lose 7 articles per hour. And even that seems like high to me when I read it. Unsafe drinking water for almost 15 minutes a day. It'd be unacceptable. Nobody would accept that. We're at one unsafe minute every 7 months. And again, I read that and think to myself, even that, I don't know if I really like the idea of an unsafe amount of drinking water 1 minute every 7 months. You can read the rest. I mean, long, short landings, probably more understandable that we're at Six Sigma levels when it comes to air traffic, electricity, surgical procedures. So there's more examples than that. There's a lot of industries that operate at 99.9997% accuracy. And the challenge is, how do we get order fulfillment to that level in baking? Last but not least, good logistics supports health and quality and safety. When we look at the supply chain from ingredient purchase to warehousing, dough preparation, production and yield, finished goods warehousing, and then finally distribution, there's logistics on the inbound side, where ingredient tracking and lot tracking actually helps the quality of the product. If you have a system in place that keeps trace of what came in first, goes out first, it reduces the overscaling, your quality of your batch becomes better, and your production yield becomes better. So overall, if you have a good inbound logistics solution, it not only helps your health and safety, but also your production yield and the quality of the product. On the outbound side, it's probably even more obvious. If you ever have the issue of a recall, having a good logistics solution in place where at the push of a button you can trace production down to delivery, that will be hugely beneficial to any operation. You're also quiet. Baking industry logistics. So let's look at the baking industry logistics. It is unique in many ways. It's not like many operations where you pick off inventory. Baking industry logistics is very dynamic. A very large number of SKUs, large number of customers typically, extremely short shelf life products, so the product needs to get out quick. Very unique to baking is that production in all cases does not match the orders, in the sense that production is made in batches, orders are often by unit, and so you're always dealing with plussing and minusing out your orders. At the same time, very demanding customers. They demand a very high level of service. They want close to, if not exactly, what they ordered. Tight delivery windows, often space constraints. I've been to many production facilities where there's just stuff everywhere. A very dynamic type of distribution that's quite unique. There's some few others that I could think of, but a lot of unique aspects to baking. Yes, right. Paper bit. So, you know, in such a dynamic environment, it's surprising that paper-based order fulfillment still dominates the industry. And why do I say that? Why? Because it's inflexible. And once the pick sheets are printed, you know, that's it. You're going to have to reprint the whole pick sheets if you want to update the order sheets. It's not real time. Human decision making is involved. People can scratch out numbers, put in new numbers. It occupies the hands, so the operators can't actually dispatch the product. They always have this piece of paper in their hands. It hinders productivity. There's the chances of human transcription errors, administration errors, and it's very labor intensive to keep records and keep them updated. And, you know, it doesn't fit well with this dynamic bread distribution that we just looked at. So, talked about why logistics is maybe more important than you think of. Talked about the bread logistics in more detail. How do you go about fixing your problems? How do you get more efficient and eliminate the waste out of your order fulfillment and distribution? Well, first and foremost, you have to untangle the warehouse. Once you've untangled the warehouse, that's the biggest piece of it, you can then start tracking and tracing your product and your material handling equipment all the way down to delivery at your end customers. And last but not least, certainly not least, there's the opportunity to optimize your trucks and the routes as they fulfill your customers' orders. So let's look at the untangling the warehouse. Right. So here's a picture of a warehouse, one that I visited actually, maybe a year ago or so. Warehouse and warehouse operations are a major cost component in terms of labor and in terms of errors. What are some of the typical issues that you deal with in the warehouse? There's a constant dealing with shortages. This is one of the things that you note. People are always looking for product, looking to fill orders, checking of the orders, order fulfillment prioritization, who goes out first, who gets what amount of product. A lot of walking around and searching times of operators. I mean, I talked about how few people you find in the production side of the building. Once you go through that wall into the warehouse, it's amazing how many people you see in the warehouse. It's like, oh, here's where everybody went on their break. It's not. They're working in the warehouse. They're not in the production area. A lot of walking around and searching, a lack of space to put everything, a lack of overview, very typical. Next slide. So, first step is you want to eliminate waste. Is apply some very general waste elimination techniques. These can be found and are practiced through different quality systems, Lean Six Sigma, total quality management, very common tools to use. So first you want is a value stream map. You want to look at what people are doing. What needs to happen in the warehouse? What needs to happen in the warehouse is the product needs to be broken down to customer or route level, and then needs to be moved into the trucks. That's the value that they're adding in the warehouse. Anything else, walking around, searching for product, updating pieces of paper are non-value add. So you want a value stream map, what people are doing, and see how you can cut out the pieces that are not adding the value. In that, part of that is organizing the warehouse. Part of the searching and looking for product is caused by a warehouse that is not laid out strictly and organized to create a certain amount of flow throughout the warehouse. You want to standardize operating procedures. You want to have everybody operate the same way, handle product the same way, place it in the same position. That not only creates a level of predictability, it makes the whole warehouse more organized because everybody's doing it the same way. There's a huge value in standardizing operating procedures. You want to implement 5S. What's 5S? It says that on the right. Again, a quality term. Sort, straighten, sweep, standardize, sustain. It's all about organizing your warehouse, making sure that everything has its place, marking off buffer areas for production, marking off customer areas for where customer product needs to be placed, staging areas for the trucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where you can, you want to apply visual management because visual management, it allows the operators to see in a glance what they need to do versus reading instructions. It's much quicker, it's much more accurate. And apply Pokeyoke where you can. Well, what's Pokeyoke? It's not something you do to each other on Facebook. It's actually foolproofing. If you can foolproof the product handling, that would be the ultimate quality measure because now you know they're not going to mishandle it. But that's the tricky thing to do, Pokeyoke. Let me talk a little bit about the flow. If I can get the next slide up. Right. So you want to create flow in a warehouse. Now the picture on the right shows a pretty significant warehouse. Actually, it may not resemble the warehouse that you have, but it shows a good principle of what I'm talking about. You want to organize it as straightforward as you can because that organization is going to give you the overview, and combined with standard operating procedures, it's going to start to give you a predictability of what's going on in that warehouse. So in this particular layout, you see here in this warehouse, the red are the staging areas of the customers. So product flows in from the left and then gets staged in these streets before they get moved out into the truck. Now I fully appreciate that people will not have this size of warehouse to work with. But the principle is what counts here. I mean, you want to organize, even if your staging areas are very small, maybe you have only one stack per customer. You want to have that layout fixed so you can stage your product, move it out, and create that repetitiveness. Obviously, you want to lay out the warehouse so you minimize walking. You want to avoid crossing paths because it's for health and safety reasons. And you want to minimize handoff points because every handoff point is a potential error point. Creating flow and standardizing procedures increases operational transparency and control. If you can see every night, everybody's doing the same thing every night, it becomes more obvious as to whether you're running ahead or behind schedule, and it becomes more manageable. Next slide. There we go. Here's some examples of visual management and Pokeyoke that I talked about earlier. So visual management here, everybody has these printers nowadays. They're color-coded to make it more clear where every ink cartridge goes. This is these plugs are a good example of something that's Pokeyoke. Unless you're my son and use brute force, you can not put these plugs in the wrong way. They're meant to be that way. Same with these electrical plugs. These are some pictures from a bakery where visual management is used, color coding of the routes, also on the floor, the staging areas for individual customers. These are some of the tools that you use to keep your warehouse organized. There's numbers for the individual routes for the customers. Another tool, very effective and powerful tool for distributing product in bakeries is paperless dispatching technologies. Not used extensively throughout the baking industry yet, but it's a very powerful tool because it enforces a number of things that I talked about earlier. Standard operating procedures. It provides visual management, and if you use a pick or a put-to-light solution in it, it automatically reduces human errors. And I'll talk to you about why that is. Here's some pictures of a paperless put-to-light system where the product is selected off the terminal and the lights tell you where to put the product. I'll talk about it in the next slide. Let me get that slide up here. So how it works is down here you have a workstation. This is a street where product is being placed. The operator selects a stack from the buffer. The blue in this case is a buffer, and either through voice commands or through a handheld, or in this case through lights, the operator is directed to individual positions throughout the street and is told how much product to place. So he goes to the first position, places 2 trays, goes to the second, third, etc., until he gets to the end of his route through the street, and he should have no product left. This gives him immediate feedback. Oops. This gives immediate feedback whether or not he made a mistake on the order fulfillment side. He should have no product left at the end of his run because the system will have divvied up the product along prioritization rules that were set by the company. If he does, he made a mistake. So, and there's no administration to update, right? The system, if there is let's say a damaged product, and he has to take some product out, he can manually cut a customer, and the system automatically updates the administration. It's real time. There's no need for any administration to be updated. So what are the benefits? There's exact production count, which is obviously already a huge improvement in most cases. It's not what the production said they produced, it's what actually came off the production line. You get consistent prioritization of adds and cuts to priority rules set within the system and not who's dispatching that particular evening. There's full traceability of who got what amount of product and who actually put the product to those customers. And certainly not to be overlooked is the fact that it's much faster than dealing with paper-based solutions. It's a one-time handling of product. You're working with your 2 hands free, and you're reducing the amount of errors significantly. There's different types of solutions depending on what type of product that you have. There's put the voice, put the light, pick the light. If you have the longer code items, you want to pick the product rather than put the product out. Different solutions out there. Next slide. There we go. So this that same warehouse that I talked about at the beginning of this section. This is the same warehouse. So this was the before situation. More chaotic, less clear where individual empties or buffers or customer positions were. After the overhaul, and after we put in some paperless dispatch technology, much more organized. We actually cut out 30% of labor in this particular warehouse because there was no need to waste time looking for product, updating, administration, et cetera, et cetera. So where do we go next? It's a bit of a pain. So once you've cleaned up the warehouse and you've created this flow and standardized your operating procedures, now you can also start tracking product as it leaves the facility. You have record of every product that got put out to every customer. Modern systems will generate an order tag, which you can see in this picture on the right. As the order gets loaded onto the truck, it automatically gets scanned with this scanner on the side of the door, scans this tag, and you have an audio and visual confirmation of that order went onto the right truck. If it went onto the wrong truck, you get a notification as well. The beauty of that is you have 100% confirmation of what orders left the facility, when they left the facility, and no negative labor impact. I mean, the loading happens exactly as it happens in the past, except the system registers it automatic. I forgot to mention, because the system knows how much product it went out and it knows how much product per carrier, it also knows how many MHE left the facility, how many material handling equipment, baskets or trays or left the facility, which is something that you can then follow up on. If you go to the drop point of the product, handheld units can scan the product off the truck, completely eliminating the unaccounted for. So now you have a registration of the product that left the facility, the production facility, onto the truck. As it is dropped at the drop point, it's scanned off the truck. Complete elimination of unaccounted for and any sales disputes. That same handheld can be used to enter. This is a manual. This is not an automatic scan, I have to immediately say. But you can manually enter also how many MHE you picked up at that drop point, which would give you a complete reconciliation of your material handling equipment by drop point as well. Okay. Right. Almost separate from all the activities I just talked about, there's the route and truck optimization software solutions that are out there. And there's many of those solutions available. And they're all geared towards minimizing the miles and maximizing the truck utilization to reduce the total operating costs. However, in baking, we find more often than not it's not always possible because of production and customer schedules, the fact whether the trucks are actually in-house or whether 3PLs are used or even IOs come pick up the product. What I can say is if you have your warehouse management in order, it will make delivery more predictable. You can actually start scheduling better, which would make these truck and route optimization solutions more effective as well. And they can impact transport costs by up to 10%. So what kind of ROI should we be thinking about? Here's an example of Mark's Delicious Bakery. A production facility, these are real numbers, a production facility, 4 production lines, 150 routes, 120 SKUs. You can see the number of order lines, the number of units per day, and the days of operation per year. The before situation, production said they produced everything that got ordered. That same day, you have the sales people screaming in your ear that, we didn't ship what the customer wanted to, and in between there's this black box, logistics black box. All I know is I have 10 operators in shipping. I have 2 administrators who are dealing with the shipping administration, the order fulfillment administration. And typically my unaccounted for runs around 2%, and I have a 98.5 order fulfillment. I try to reship always, but fact of the matter is I reship only 8 out of 10 times. I go out to my logistics black box and do some really detailed investigation. I look at what's going on, and a couple of the observations. First thing is we're not always producing what's ordered. Sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under. I see a lot of double handling of product. Product comes off the production line, is put in some area, is picked up by someone else, it's put in some other area before it actually gets broken down into customer orders. I see a lot of searching of product. Somebody's looking for some whole wheat and others looking for rolls, trying to fulfill these orders. A lot of searching, non-value add going on. Who gets what depends on who's dispatching that day. Some guys are friends with some truckers, some guys are some friends with some customers. Different amounts get distributed to different customers. It's not consistent who gets added, who gets cut. I even find that some of my customers, some I always come in and actually look for product on the production floor and just grab what they find to fulfill their orders or what they think that they order. So I put in place some clear standard operating procedures. I put in place visual management. I cordon off where the buffers are, where the staging areas are, where the mixed stack building takes place, and I put in place technology, production count, put to light paperless dispatch, automatic stack registration into the trucks, and stack registration and delivery. And drum roll. So this is my payback. Here's what I see in terms of savings. First of all, my new pick accuracy, was 98.5%. It went to 99.8%. And I'm not at 100%, but I'm getting pretty darn close. My administration time per error is 3 minutes. My sales time per error is 4 minutes. Extra travel to supply on average 8 miles at $75 per mile. I'm saving close to $200,000 in just not having to deal with these errors, these order picking errors. Labor savings, by virtue of the fact that I have my clear buffer areas, I got my clear staging areas, my product placement, and I'm using these lights to tell me where to place the product, I'm saving 20% in labor. My administration cost goes down even more because my system is automatically updating the administration. I don't need anybody to retype the information off the pick sheets. That saves me a total of $140,000 in labor in the warehouse. My unaccounted for drops to 0.3%. Another big bucket. It was 2%. Now that 2% is also partially caused by virtue of the fact that I have a paper-based system and it's just transcription errors. So that 2% isn't real. But let's say that 2% was 50% accurate. The difference is 50% of what I'm recovering. That's $200,000 in product that I'm recovering that went missing in the past, for a total of $500,000 in savings and a payback of roughly 6 months. Now, these are real numbers, so this is the type of savings that you could have. If these numbers look familiar, if they don't look out of whack with your own operation, that's the type of numbers you could be thinking about. Which is why I'm saying, this could be one of the areas where most bottom line impact can be had in baking today. Here's my circles. Missed that. Next slide. Right. Additional benefits. My customer errors dropped from 147 errors per customer per year down to 20. And because my salespeople are not dealing with these errors anymore, I actually free up over half a salesman in capacity, because they're not dealing with the errors coming out of the warehouse and shipping. Keys to success. Last but not least, we're almost through here. Keys to success. You want to select the right technology and the right partner. Like I said, baking does have its peculiarities, as everyone on this webinar knows. So you want to deal with somebody who knows what you deal with on a day in, day out basis. You want to develop the right warehouse layout. Not that you can't change the layout, but it's not terribly easy to change the layout. You wouldn't want to do it every month. So you want to develop the right warehouse layout, because that can have a significant impact on the amount of labor that you need. And last but absolutely certainly not least, the buy-in, changing over from a situation where you're dependent on the people that have been doing this bread distribution for 20, 30 years and know all the intricacies, and they're doing, quite frankly, they're doing a fantastic job with the information and the tools that they have, to a situation where you're dependent on a system where the lights tell you what to do with the product, or the voice tells you what to do with the product, is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And you want to make sure that everybody's bought into the fact that you want to change the methodology and that they're on board, because the solution is only as good as the buy-in that you get from everybody involved. I think that's all I had, unless I'm surprising myself with another slide. Nope, that's it. Are there any questions from the audience?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be opening up the Q&A session. I'll be reading the questions aloud to our speaker, who will then respond. Reminder for submitting a question, please make sure that your attendee panel is open and to submit your question in the question box. So we will give it a couple minutes and see if any questions come in, Mark.
It was all crystal clear.
I thought so. Very easy to follow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time. I mean, it's great that you'd be able to do this, without travel or anything.
So we'll give it a couple more minutes.
Sure.
And just to let everyone know, if you come up with a question after the webinar has ended, the next slide is going to contain Mark's email address. Feel free to contact him directly. Or
yes, feel free to do so, yeah.
Exactly, or you can contact me and I would be happy to act as an intermediary. So we did get a question about the recording. Yes, we are going to be recording this and it will be posted to the website for anybody who wants to access this again. Are there any additional questions? Seems everybody is very interested in a recording. That's got to be a good thing, Mark.
Yeah, well, if there's any questions afterwards, please feel free to drop me an email or give me a call.
Definitely. If I get any questions, I will put them all to you. Or as I said, on the next slide, everyone, we're going to have Mark's email address. So you can contact him directly. So we'll give it another second or two.
Maybe you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's see.
There you go.
There you go, everyone. So it's mark.braun@pcdatainc.com if you want to contact him directly. So it doesn't look like we're receiving any questions. I think that's a good thing, Mark.
Yep, no, absolutely. Again, thank you very much for taking the time out of everybody's busy schedule. I know 4th of July is coming up, so
it's a great presentation for the 4th of July food rush. So let's see. I guess then we're going to conclude the presentation. Mark's email address is there if you want to contact him directly. Otherwise, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email with the survey. Your feedback is important to ASB and Mark, so we encourage you to take a moment to complete it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me directly. Again, I'm Amanda Gonzalez, the Membership Manager, and I can be reached at agonzalez@asbe.org, or my phone number is 1-800-713-0462, extension 3. All right, it looks like we're not getting any other questions, so if it's all right with you, Mark, we'll go ahead and conclude the presentation.
Yep, fine by me. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.